Philippines politics. If you had enough of listening to American politics, hearing about the amount of people who believe in one person who has made significantly negative impacts towards the country in the span of 4 years, severely impacting the democracy and shattered the beliefs of the country, creating fake news absolutely everywhere and endangering so many people. But the Philippines is like 4 of them, so welcome to Filipino politics. Yeah, we basically have 4 Trumps all running for president or vice president. Before you complain about me, oh, who is this furry trying to meddle in politics? I bet they're a zoophile and like to pretend as an animal. Ew. No, I'm not. And I don't. That's an otherkin. It doesn't hurt to Google what we are. It takes 5 minutes. Come back afterwards. Back to the topic at hand. You'd normally think that politics involve proper discussions, using the right arguments, avoiding logical fallacies, being very civil during discussions, making educated conclusions from such, and learning from one another. Yeah, that doesn't happen here. Apart from every conversation with the right-wing conservatives being exclusively insulting you or other people, involving religion, for your information, involving religion is not allowed in debates or politics, stated in Article 2, Section 6 of the Constitution of the Philippines of 1987, describing the separation of church and state, that religion should not influence politics in any way or form. Moving on, lastly, is involving so many logical fallacies that they've become teaching material for students. The Philippines also has one of the lowest reading comprehensions in multiple multinational exams, caused by many factors such as the wide poverty line, being very prone to typhoons, and the toxic mentality constantly being inherited year after year that school is not that important, just pass and you'll be fine throughout life. The Philippines also has a very low technology reach for many people. Most Filipinos are not completely aware of politics because of this, and basically go on who they recognize. This results into a very prominent political dynasty. Political dynasty is essentially monarchy in democracy, wherein members of the same family exist in multiple areas for multiple terms across the country, which contradicts the definition and pillars of democracy. This is seen right now with the authoritarian and current president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, and his daughter, Sara Duterte, who is currently running for vice president. I swear the Philippines is a monarchy in democratic clothing. And what greater of an example of how politicians abuse these deficiencies in the Philippines than this politician. No platform, no content, nothing to fight for. Just him dancing, his name, and his number on the ballot. This man placed 11th in the last Senate election. And may I remind you that this is his only commercial on live television. And if you aren't aware, politicians use live television in the Philippines to advertise themselves. And again, that's his only commercial. And to add even more salt to that undignified win, school posts from my school, other schools from my friends, and even the University of the Philippines and other major schools went for the Ocho Derecho party, specifically Shell Jokno. He won so many polls from multiple universities and high schools, but still lost hard at 21st. The best way to summarize politics of the Philippines is how popular can you get no matter what? And yeah, you don't need the platform, just get that clout and you'll win. The Philippines also has a double-edged sword of a habit of spreading rumors. Either they save something very crucial or create an unjustified downfall. That can be the case for this upcoming election regarding with Bongbong Marcos. For a lot of supporters, their reasoning on voting him is primarily on the quote-unquote achievements of his father, former dictator Ferdinand Marcos, and that they want the state of the Philippines back in Ferdinand Marcos era. BBC News reports on January 6 of 2022 that the possible reasoning behind the manipulation of what happened on the tyranny of Marcos is possible through social media. Let's listen into a few words from the report.
It does create a tremendous distortion of history and events.
In May, Filipinos will not only vote for their next president, but also decide what version of history they believe in. The independent media reporting of the brutal martial law period or a sanitized social media version of it.
I think that already says a lot on what we're experiencing during the election campaign. Civil politic debates. What's that? Can I eat it? Yeah, don't even try to debate with a conservative, right? Either you get upset or the other person tries to fight you. You have better luck trying to debate with students, trust me. Despite almost everyone you meet is a progressive in terms of pushing the country into modernization, they're a conservative in terms of family values and morality, such as the LGBTQIA+, child abuse, abortion, their leaders, etc. Just think of the United States, just less developed and a bigger poverty line and constantly getting hit by typhoons. Despite the country pushing the Build program, which is essentially more highways and transportation and buildings, the lack of technology throughout the country is still very prevalent. The people who live in the mountains have to work for kilometers just to get a signal for their phone with a barely usable internet speed. And the millions under the poverty line can get barely any content. So any campaign from any candidate is completely useless in the election. Voters have been going by ear for a long time. If they recognize the name, they go for it. There's barely any voters' education whatsoever, and we do not have the technology to do so. These many deficiencies of the Philippines incredibly endanger our democracy by unconsciously promoting political dynasty of all proportions and voting for people who are famous for the completely wrong reasons. And we haven't even talked about the upcoming presidential candidates yet! Stay tuned for the next episode about the candidates. That's a completely different mess compared to the state of democracy right now. Take the state of democracy as how 2019 went and the candidates as how 2020 went. Yeah, it's that bad. That ends the first episode of News Furst's podcast. I was originally planning to do this as a standalone project, but since there was a project for media in our school and it perfectly aligned with my original script, I said, why not hit two birds with one stone? I'm not particularly sure when to post the second episode, but don't worry, I already have a script and I'll try my best to get it out before the election. Until next time, this is Tech Kenji from News Furst.